Hola, hola, we are live. Thank you for joining everybody. I'm Bryson, the founder of Bamboo Languages. And if you are studying for TOEFL or learning English, maybe IELTS, you're in the right spot. We appreciate you joining. We have one of our certified instructors, Stephen, here, who will help us with the best tips and tricks uh, in his experience for preparing hundreds of students for TOEFL and IELTS. And we can get started. So we're excited you're here. If you have any questions, just put it in the chat. We'll get to it as we can. We can also leave time at the end for Q&A, then we can get started. So this is a little bit of our agenda. Before we get started, I would like to introduce ourselves, Bamboo Languages, as a company, to kind of give you an idea of why you might be here, what we do, and how we might be able to help you. So, our mission is to help you students learn and practice languages through conversation in a safe setting, in a safe place. Part of that safe place is building community, and we like to give back to community. And so, with that being the case, this is one of our ways that we like to build community and give back and share a little bit of our experience to help you further your language goals and achieve your scores in TOEFL, IELTS, etc. We know that obviously education unlocks many opportunities, including educational opportunities for higher education, but also employment. And we're honored that you chose us to be a part of this journey. Um, a little bit about myself as a founder, and we'll introduce Stephen here in a little bit. But I am a language learner as well, studying Spanish. A lot of what we cover in this particular presentation, I've applied for my own learnings and have seen them be successful. And that's ultimately what led me to start Bamboo, which was looking for a place to actually practice conversation. I studied language in university, downloaded some apps, and I knew a lot of the grammar, but couldn't really practice one to one with a native speaker, both speaking and understanding what they were saying at a native level. And so that's kind of how we got started, why we're here, and why we're excited to, again, be a part of your journey. Lastly, as a platform, we offer three services. One, free groups for language learners. So you as a language learner could start a group, create a virtual or in-person meetup, and practice with your friends. It's a great way to have an informal setting, learn some of the native slang, and also practice your conversation. Two, we offer instructor-led conversation groups with our great instructors like Stephen here. He teaches English on our platform. And that's a great way to meet friends and practice in a group setting, but also have a little bit more structure and expert feedback to bring your language to the next level. And third, we offer an exam preparation program, which is very closely aligned to what we're discussing today. And that's for the more serious learner who wants to bring the language to the next level, unlock those opportunities that we mentioned. So that's high level what we are as a company, who we are, how we look to help you. A lot of information. The rest of the agenda here, as you can see, is related to TOEFL, best practices, understanding the exams, general tips for success, mastering each section, and ultimately effective time management. And we'll provide you with some resources to help. As we move forward to this section, now is a time of our live session where I get to introduce Stephen. He is a very experienced and excellent professor that we have here on our platform. He's helped hundreds of students achieve their goals with both IELTS and TOEFL, and he's here to share a little bit about um, what can help you be successful with the exam itself. So, round of applause for Stephen. Stephen, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Bryson, and thank you for having me here. Okay, good evening, everyone. So yes, as Bryson said, I'm Steven, and I am a language instructor. I teach English, Spanish, and French, and I've been working as an English teacher for almost 15 years. And I've been preparing students for IELTS, TOEFL, and other international exams for about 10 years now. So, and today we're going to be talking about the best practices for TOEFL. And these practices also apply to other international certifications, such as IELTS, for example. So we can move to the next.
Very cool.
Okay, so first of all, we need to understand what TOEFL is about because a lot of people think that this exam is going to be about grammar when it's not. It's mostly about evaluating our language skills in four different areas: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So it doesn't mean that grammar is not evaluated. It is, but in a different way. It is evaluated through writing, the way we write, the way we speak, and the vocabulary is evaluated or assessed through reading and listening. These type of exams are very important when we want to study at a university. TOEFL, for example, is one of the most widely recognized international certifications in this case, along with IELTS, for example. And it is also important if you want to apply for a visa, if you want to live in an English speaking country. So that's going to be very helpful as well.
Definitely is. Awesome.
Okay, so tips in order to succeed when taking the TOEFL exam. So this is something very general. Okay, but it's very important to understand the format of the exam, just to know what to expect. Okay, so we already know that we are going to be evaluated on four different areas: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. But it is also very important to practice getting more familiarized with academic words. It's not that we're going to be learning a list of words because that's not the idea. The idea is to basically read academic passages in order to become familiar with the vocabulary that we normally use there. Even though I would say that, based on my experience, learning academic vocabulary is not the main focus. The main focus is practicing. Okay, so vocabulary, yes, it is important, but it's not going to be a factor for success, I would say. You may know a lot of academic vocabulary, but still, if we are not able to implement that vocabulary when listening, speaking, or if we are not able to apply the reading strategies, we may know all of the vocabulary, but still we might fail. So let's remember that this is not a vocabulary test. It is mostly a language test in which we are going to apply these strategies. For example, we can be native speakers of English and we don't understand all of the words in a text. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. And grammar, yes, it's very important to have good grammar, but that's something that is not going to be assessed directly on the exam. So we are not going to have one section in which we are going to complete, for example, with the present simple. That's something TOEFL is not about. The grammar is going to be evaluated through our speaking and writing skills. So if we are able to use the simple present in writing, it's because we master that tense. If we are able to speak in past, then it's because we know the simple past. So this is how they basically make sure that we know the grammar, but there is no grammar section. It is the most important thing, I would say, is becoming familiarized with the exam to know what to expect and also to receive and learn the best tips and practices in order to manage time correctly. That's one of the main challenges, I would say. So, and that's why all of the tips that we receive that we give you in class can help you manage your time effectively.
100%.
Okay, so well, the reading section. The reading section of the TOEFL test is going to have three different passages. So, and we have to answer a series of questions. So, based on my experience, what I normally ask my students is to read the text very quickly in order to understand what it is about, but not in order to understand it in a deep way. It's just in order to understand, to get a very general idea of what the text is about, especially because there will be one exercise that is called prose summary, in which we have to select four sentences out of six or seven sometimes, and those sentences have to reflect what the text is about. So this is very important. Reading very quickly just to understand what the text is about, and that can also help us, believe me or not, after practicing a lot, that can also help us to go back to the questions and then be able to answer that question without even needing to go back to the text, even though it's always a recommendation to go back to the text, I mean, to the test, just to double check, I would say. But the good thing about TOEFL, when we're talking about reading, is that they always let us know where or in which paragraph the answer is. So that's a good advantage. That saves a lot of time. And this relates to the last point: practice timed reading and in order to enhance speed. This is very important because we are going to have about 60 minutes. It can be 55, 58. It depends on the number of questions because it varies according to the format. Okay, but it is very important to practice reading activities in order to be able to answer all of the questions within that amount of time. One recommendation, as I said at the beginning, is to read the whole text because it can help us save time by identifying the correct answers more quickly and answer the prose question summary activity. And but let's imagine that we only have 10 minutes, let's say. And you tell me, well, Steven, what can we do in that case? Because if I read the whole text, am I am I not wasting time? Maybe. And yes, that's true. So in that case, if we're running out of time, I would tell you, hey guys, look, don't go and read the whole text. Let's just focus on the questions to answer as many questions as possible. And another positive thing about TOEFL is that we always have the options. So that's something that can help us a lot. Okay? So just to finish
Or
on
we can go back. I think I
this,
might have
yeah, yeah,
jumped
that's
ahead there. Go ahead.
actually just one thing about reading that I was going to answer is, or what was going to highlight is, in TOEFL, when we are taking the test, we need to pay attention to paraphrasing. If one of the options, for example, has or is very similar to the text, it is very likely to be the wrong answer. And another thing, for example, another common tip is to pay attention to those words that can completely change the meaning of the statement. For example, usually, never. So those are words, for example, she goes to the park 80% of the time. And then we say, okay, always. No, that 80% of the time is not always. So that's something we need to check. It's just to give you an example of how just one word in the statements can change the answer. Or,
Makes sense, and it's helpful to not get tripped up with some of those confusing words there.
yeah, totally. Okay, well, the listening section. A lot of people find listening challenging, and it is. Why is it? It's because we don't know what they are going to ask about. We don't know what the questions are. We're just going to listen, and then after listening, okay, so surprise. These are the questions. But the good thing is that in order to answer those questions, we can take notes. And the tips that we receive during the preparation course are going to help us prepare in order to identify key information. For example, the purpose. If we listen to a conversation, let's imagine that it's a conversation between a student and a professor, and the student says, "Oh, professor, I'm here because I have some questions about the paper we need to deliver tomorrow." So we know that that's something we need to take notes about, the purpose of the conversation. So by identifying what information is worth noting, we can answer the questions without a problem. So we need to take notes about the purpose, examples that they give, any problems they may have, the tone of the people. So that's something to keep in mind for the listening section. Well, it's actually there. Identify the speaker's purpose, and yeah, pay attention to the tone, actually, and practice a lot. Practice makes perfect. The more you listen, the more opportunities or chances are that you will excel the listening section.
Do you have any recommendations on where students might be able to practice music, podcasts, shows, anything like
Okay,
that?
there are different websites, okay, with activities for TOEFL. We just need to make sure that they follow the standards of the exam. Because I say, okay, so this is listening for TOEFL, but maybe the activity itself doesn't follow the standards. So that's one thing there. But there are lots of resources. We can check some videos on YouTube, for example. That's a great source of information. And there are other websites, but they are paid. But they offer very useful resources for practicing. So
Very
that's
cool. That makes sense.
okay. Speaking. Speaking is a very challenging part too because of timing, and not only because of timing, it's because it also includes a reading part. So
Hmm.
sometimes we have to read, listen, and speak. This is what they call. There is a term that they use in order to talk about these activities that are mixed. If I'm not mistaken, that's comprehensive activities. If I'm not mistaken, so that's the term that we normally use when we are referring to activities that have more than one skill. Even though we're speaking, well, we may have reading, for example, and listening. Yes.
Hmm.
So, for example, we have to read a passage, a short passage, or maybe an announcement from a college, and then we have to read a conversation about that announcement, or and then at the end we have to give our opinion using the arguments from both the reading and the listening. So this is what makes speaking very challenging. But another thing is timing. We normally have only 30 seconds to deliver our response. So that's why it's very important to be able to identify what we need to say and to manage the rhythm, the pace that we're going to use and providing examples. So basically, this would be the most important thing to keep in mind when doing the speaking section. Know what the examiners are going to expect. So they always expect. They are looking for, let's say, a short introduction, then an argument, an example, then the second argument, and the example. If we follow that structure, then we are going to do a very good job in the listening part, in the speaking part. And yes, connecting ideas is very important too. That's something that I saw on the slide as well. The
Hmm.
writing section. So the writing section changed last year. So it used to be a little bit different. I think it's for the best, I would say, of people who take IELTS because, sorry, TOEFL in this case, because the activity is simplified. In the past, we needed to write an essay, so it was a full essay. Now it's going to be more like participating in a forum. So the teacher poses a topic and a question regarding that topic, and then we have to read two opinions of our classmates, and then we have to provide our own opinion. So we can use their ideas and say whether we agree or disagree, and provide our own arguments to express what our opinion is. It's shorter, it's just 100 words compared to the 250, 300 that we had to write for the complete essay in the past. So it's much easier. The most difficult part is the other writing activity, which is a comprehensive one. It's the one that we have with listening and reading. Yes, my friends, listening and reading in the writing part. We have to read an article, an academic article, then we have to listen to a lecture about that article, and then we have to write a report in which we have to say or mention the arguments from the reading and the listening, making comparisons where relevant. So normally the reading, let's say, that argues for the benefits of watching TV, and then in the lecture the professor disagrees. So we have to say in the reading, both the reading and the listening. Well, they normally say both the lecture and the passage describe the benefits of watching TV, while the professor says that Right, dude. And then we have to write every single paragraph with one of the arguments, then giving the argument of the professor, the lecturer, and the argument from the reading passage.
You can
So
see how it's important to practice all aspects of the exam because it affects each independent part, you know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's one of the most challenging parts of TOEFL because, as I said before, is maybe if your listening is not that good, then that's going to affect your speaking and your writing as well. I'm afraid. So that's one thing. But with preparation, everything is possible, guys. And practice. Practice makes perfect.
Definitely. Speaking of practice, I think it's important for time management on test day. So, any tips there for us?
Yeah, that's it's very important not to overwhelm ourselves. You know, a lot of people try to practice a lot, and that's good. It's good to practice, but it is also important to take a break. For example, as we can see on the slide, we need to sleep well, especially the day before the test, or even I would say the week before the test. Okay, so let's say to take it easy and eat healthily, and yes, arrive early because a lot of people, let's say that if something happens, that's going to make you feel concerned or stressed, and that's not a very good idea on a test day. So maybe you prepared very well, maybe your English is perfect, but if something like that happens, believe me, that's going to affect your mental state during that test, and that's not the idea. So basically, I would say that just arrive early. And if you are taking the test at home, make sure that all of the equipment works. Even though my recommendation is to go to the test center. Okay, because at home, a lot of things can happen.
Yeah, you don't want Wi-Fi not to work in the middle of the test, for example.
No, it's not a good idea.
All right, cool. So we have test day management there. We touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about some extra resources or links that we might be able to provide to students um, to help practice?
Well, right now I cannot think of any link at the moment. Okay, but we can use the material from the official guide. That's very good. The official guide for preparing for TOEFL. That's something that I highly recommend. We have tips, different exercises there, and there are some platforms I know, but I have never tried them. And the only thing is that they are, as I said before, we need to subscribe or pay for those resources. My recommendation, because as I said before, I cannot think of a name at the moment. There are so many resources on the internet, but let's just make sure that they comply with the standards of the test. For example, if we see we check. Let's say a writing activity for task number one, which is about the passage and the listening, the lecture. And we see that they don't provide at least three arguments each. So that's not following the standards of the test. So it's not a very good resource to use. It should always be three arguments. If, for
Hmm.
example, if the announcement doesn't provide the decision the university is taking, plus two reasons why the university is making that decision, then that's not a very well designed listening activity. So they always have these standards and they normally follow them. So it's a good idea to practice with official resources. And if we are going to purchase or use other resources, we just need to make sure that they comply with the standards of the exam. So that would be my recommendation. But right now, honestly, I cannot think of one example of a web page. There are so many.
What I heard was you didn't trust any resource more than you trust us here at Bamboo, so you couldn't think of anything
Exactly. There you
that made
So,
sense.
exactly.
I'm
There
just
you
kidding.
So, totally. Okay, you can trust us. Okay, we are always going to use the best materials for you and the best resources. So that's for sure.
Definitely. Cool. So that kind of, like I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the call, was just a high level of what we recommend to be successful in TOEFL. Now we can open it up to questions. Before we do that, let's just give Stephen again another round of applause for sharing his
Thank you.
expertise with us. I'm sure a lot of you found that helpful. We did have one question pre-submitted before the stream started here. We have one student who is about to finish their bachelor's as an English teacher, and they must present their exam over the next year at the latest. So they have about a year to study, and they need to achieve C1. They haven't had much opportunity to practice. Given that you're a teacher and have achieved that yourself, what kind of advice could you give this student to help begin their practice and achieve that C1 within a year?
And to practice, first of all, we need to identify what our current level is. So it's very important to assess our level of English in order to check whether we are a B1, a B2. Okay, so that's very important to keep in mind what the level is, and then after that, well, as we said before, practicing is very important. Practicing with official resources, and yeah, just give me 1 second. I'm just going to change my headset.
No problem.
Okay. Okay. So yes, sorry, can you hear me now?
I got you.
It's technical issues.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. I don't care.
Cool.
Okay, so yeah, basically, of course, if we want to prepare, the obvious recommendation that I'm going to give you is to prepare with bamboo. Again, we can help you achieve your goal. But of course, watching movies, listening to music, that can help a lot. But also try to read a lot of academic texts. That's very important. Listen to lectures. There are lots on YouTube. You can listen to lectures that can help with the listening, because we will be more used to the vocabulary they use, the vocabulary they implement, and try selecting some sample exercises online, the speaking ones, and we can speak and time ourselves, then record, and then listen to what we said in order to check whether we have to improve our pronunciation, the vocabulary. If I say, okay, so yes, I said this, then that's something that we need to work on in that case, to avoid filling words. So that would be my recommendation. But before we go any further, we need to know what our level is in order to check how much time we need in order to prepare for the test, and how realistic the goal is. Because let's say that, for example, we are A1, or sorry, well, not A1, let's say B1. To get a C1 in TOEFL, um, it's going to be challenging, not impossible, but very challenging.
Hmm. That makes sense. And I think setting those expectations up front will be helpful and inform the plan that you use and obviously how you practice to be successful. So that makes sense. Um, I haven't seen any other comments or chats come through in the short term. We could always follow up. Obviously, for those who pre-registered for the info session today, you have our email address. You can send us the questions if you would like, or post a comment after the live stream ends as well. Um, but I think we could move to the next slide after that. All right. And this kind of is closely aligned to what Stephen was talking about. Um, I think an opportunity to level up your TOEFL prep obviously would be assessing your level, finding some of the comprehensive curriculum that would help you achieve your goals, and obviously practicing with an expert. Um, we, as we touched on earlier, do provide that opportunity here with our exam preparation program. You would be able to have an initial call with a language expert like Stephen. In that call, you would assess your language level and your goals. For example, let's say you're B2, you want to be a C1 by the end of the year to become the teacher that you mentioned. You would assess that goal, and Stephen would be able to come up with a customized plan to help you achieve that goal. Um, from there, as part of the plan, you have access to 10 one-to-one live sessions with your instructor. There, you get to work through the practice that you have discussed in your customized plan. Also, there will be some take-home work, obviously, to help reinforce your learning. The big difference with this plan is that you have access to unlimited group conversation classes led by instructors. Um, and that's designed to help you work on some of the conversation skills that Stephen mentioned, because it touches every part of TOEFL and it helps you practice what you've learned in the sessions with your instructor. So that's kind of a quick high level of how we help you achieve your goals in your exam preparation. We also connect you with your personal language partner to help practice one-to-one in a more informal setting, again, to help drive home our mission of helping you learn through conversation. So if that is something that would interest you all, we have the information right here. Make sure to take that down. There's our website, our standard website at the bottom. If you're interested in exam prep, it's www.bamboo, two M's, two U's, .co, no com, slash exam prep. There you'll find more information about what we provide, some videos. You'll be able to see cool videos from tutors and instructors like Steven. And hopefully you'll be able to find something that will help you achieve your goal. I did promise to those who pre-registered that we'll provide a special follow-up offer to those. I'll send an email out after this to let you know what you have achieved. But again, we appreciate your time. We're very honored that you decided to join our community, and would be even more honored if you sign up and just join. You don't have to sign up for anything paid, but just join, take a look, and see what we offer. And please drop us a comment, share, let your friends know about us, and we'll see you in the next live stream. Thank you again.
Bye bye.